Hello, everyone, and welcome to the webinar. My name is Gary Allen, and I'll be your host today. The topic is how to make QuickBooks Online shine for mid-sized law firms. We're very happy to have Lynda Artesani, who is an expert QuickBooks for law firms person. Let's get started with the webinar. Whoa. How did that happen? Sorry. I got to the end of my thing here, so let's try this again. Let me just introduce myself for a minute here. I am a 35-year practicing attorney. I worked in a mid-sized firm for many years. And early on in my career, I experienced a lot of pain in my practice from bad business practices. So I actually had two law firms that I worked for implode while I was in them early in my career. And I was fortunate to land in a really well-run firm and had a great 30-year practice after that. So it's made me really passionate about helping lawyers have profitable and happy practices. Along the way, I founded LeanLaw, which is a legal billing software company. And that's what we're talking about today, along with QuickBooks. So just so you have a sense of where I come from with LeanLaw, we are a mission-driven company to help law firms become better businesses. We make software that modernizes the full financial life cycle of a law firm, from timekeeping, invoicing, payments, trust accounting, and reporting. There are three things that differentiate us in the market. First, we are financially focused. We don't try to be all things to law firms. Secondly, we're built to complement best-in-class tools and applications like QuickBooks Online, Microsoft 365, and more. We think those are the foundations of your technical stack that you want. And our focus is on small to mid-sized law firms. And if you want to learn more about how we can help you modernize your firm, please reach out via this QR code or otherwise. So what we're here to do today, first of all, we want you to understand our perspective of why QuickBooks Online is the best choice for mid-sized law firms. We want you to understand how to do trust accounting and reconciliation in QuickBooks Online, and how QuickBooks handles specific legal billing, and also QuickBooks reporting and compensation tracking capabilities, and how LeanLaw helps to customize QBO for mid-sized firms in all of these areas. So I'm really excited to have Lynda Artesani with us. Lynda's been a friend and colleague for many years. She works with exclusively with law firms and has many LeanLaw clients in her stable. And I think exclusively with QuickBooks Online, isn't that right, Lynda?
It is the clients that, in our firm, Proper Trust, we do have some Xero clients, but they're for the smaller boutique firms. We do have
Yes.
like maybe 3 or 4 of them, but the rest are all QuickBooks Online.
Yes, so she's seen everything there is to see in QuickBooks Online. So she's got a couple of her accounting business. She's also the co-founder of the Proper Trust, which is about trust, I expect. So about trust accounting. And she's a great speaker. She's spoken all over the place and received a really special award as the top QuickBooks Online Pro Advisor of the year. There are at least tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of pro advisors. So that's quite an honor. So Lynda, do you want to say a little bit more about yourself and your services?
Yeah, sure. So one of the things I'd like to say about us is that, I don't know if you know this, Gary, but we started out, Sarah and I, separate small companies. Artesani Accounting was my baby, and I was pretty much a generalist back then. And then I just started to shift to working with attorneys in 2016 after I had gone to a QuickBooks Connect conference. And then Sarah, my business partner, Sarah Prevost, she actually had her business in LeanLaw sent a referral to her, which was a data migration, a big data migration, taking somebody off of PC Law and putting them into QuickBooks and LeanLaw. And she had done some work with law firms, and this client was on the West Coast. And it came like in February when we were really busy, and she reached out to me. We did the work together, and that's how the business was formed. We just finished that job and like, oh, let's get another one. I think I reached back out to you guys. Hey, we're available to do another data migration. And taking somebody off of one software and putting them onto another is a big job. So that's kind of how our business started. And that was 6 years. That was 6 years ago. So it's been a few years already, just with that. And we
Fantastic.
focused on mid market. So we're in a small mid market. So looking at anywhere between 5 to 10 employees, up to 50, a little bit more than that, up to 100 we could go up to, but anything more, that's a different software, different game.
Right. So tell me a little bit about the Law Lab.
So the Law Lab came out of, we started doing the work and we started to get known as the legal ladies, and we got a lot of questions. Oh, we hear that you work with, you work with QuickBooks. I was kind of already known for being in the QuickBooks world. And then we kept getting questions that we couldn't answer them all. We're trying to do our own work. And we decided to form this group, private group, and it's, you pay a small fee, and every week we get together and we tackle different questions that happen as a law firm accountant. And sometimes they're really basic. We always tell our members, because everybody helps each other, which is really what's nice about it. And we just meet once a week, and it can be topics. This year, we've added a topic of AI in accounting, because that's a pretty shifting topic, and we're all bringing our collective knowledge and how we're using it, what products have AI in it that's going to help us as accountants.
Mm.
That's been really fascinating, and the members ask for us to add that in every week. I think I put it on the list one month, and they're like, can we do this every month? So we added that, and then one week we do open forum, where anybody who's working with a law firm client that gets stuck, because we record our meetings, so if you join, you get to see all the past meetings. But the open forum ones tend to be shorter, because we'll shut the camera off and actually dive into client files and help our members get out of
Nice.
situations where they're just stuck. Those crazy things that can happen. The client put their trust deposit into operating. How do we book this in and show the story of what happened? Things like that, that we help them
Right.
put into the file. The bank cleared a check for a different amount. How do you
Mm-hmm.
book that in? Things like that.
Mm-hmm. So we've got your email address up here. Is that the best way to reach you if anybody
Yeah,
wants to learn
yeah.
more?
You can Google me. I'm all over the place on all the social media. So unfortunately, I think I'm the only Lynda Artesani with a Y. So
Nice, nice. All right, so let's start talking about how we make QuickBooks Online work for law firms. And so you've told us a little bit about your background. You mentioned you're a pro advisor. Just so everybody's on the same page, what does that mean?
So pro advisor, really what that means, and it kind of has a different meaning today than when we first started. So I became a pro advisor. It was the way Intuit would describe someone who took some courses and got certified in using their software. And back in the desktop days, actually, when they had the pro advisor, I think the tag of pro advisor started, I was one every year for many, many years. I think it was started in 1999. I was certified. And then somewhere along the line, there became a lot of people, because the test wasn't terribly difficult. And then they decided that they were going to give you another level, and it was advanced. Now that's called level, there's level 1 and level 2. So they changed the name again. But it basically means the software.
Okay.
And that's typically something that helps people understand that you do know QuickBooks. The advanced test is harder. It's got a little bit more to it. It's definitely more detailed, and it kind of gets out of the software a little bit more into some principles around accounting. But Intuit does a great job. They have, if you're starting out a bookkeeping company and you don't know where to go and you want to start out, I think going to them, learning QuickBooks, and going through all their courses. They have one on payroll that teach you all about payroll, not just the software of it. They have one that's just bookkeeping, learning all the things in bookkeeping. And there's one on advisory, how to add advisory skills. So it's just a suite of things, costs you nothing except your time. So if you're just starting out, get all those certifications, because you do get leads from them. When I first started and this whole program started, I got a lot of leads from them, and then that kind of stopped. Although whatever they've done recently, like within the last month, they've started to come in, because for a while there we were getting a lot of spam ones, but now something's
Mhm.
changed and I'm starting to get them again. Um, I get them that are
Okay.
not for lawyers, so I share them with our group, because there are some bookkeepers in our group that don't actually only work exclusively with attorneys. So we share them. I try to share them with somebody who may be a specialist in, like, if it's a landscaper, find that person that just works with landscapers, because you're going to get a better, I think you're going to
Yeah.
get a better result from somebody who just sees that industry and knows everything about it. And they've got 5, 10, 15, 100 clients in that industry. You do get a different depth of
Right.
knowledge when you have that.
And just so everyone understands, I mean, your clients are all over the country,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
So, and you're working with all of them remotely. You don't have to fly to Altoona to, serve a law firm there.
No, we got
Yeah.
one in New Zealand, and we don't, I have
You
not
you
met them.
should you should you should
I would like
make a
to go to
trip
that
there.
one. Yeah. If she's
Um,
listening. Yeah.
But, and, to the audience, especially those of you who are law firms, now you don't have to necessarily find the skills that you need in your town. That because one of the advantages of having an online software is it can be fully serviced remotely. And, that to many of us, that's kind of goes without saying at this point, but it needs to be said still.
Unfortunately, with attorneys, it does. And it's funny, we worked with one client and LeanLaw client that we converted off of, I don't think it was Juris. I think it was something else, but Abacus or some crazy old antique software. And I can remember that they saw the software and we took them through, I think you all took them through the steps of the draft and the approval. I mean, it's beautifully set up and aligned, right? I make the draft. I let them know the drafts are there. They approve the draft, and then I can go forward. And do you know that they were printing them and running them up and down the hallway to get somebody to sign the paper? And I'm like, what are you doing? But sometimes they have a set workflow they had for
That
50 years, and it's hard to,
That was my law firm for many years, and they may still do that for some partners.
oh,
Yeah,
I
it's
know.
painful. It's painful. Well, that's a good story to get us started about the kind of transformation that's possible using, modern online tools like QuickBooks and LeanLaw. So, um, from your perspective, what makes QuickBooks Online the best choice for mid-sized firms compared to other accounting systems? So it's an industry standard for small to mid-sized businesses. What factors most contribute to that?
I think, well, QuickBooks is very robust. It has a ton of features. You've got budgeting, you've got forecasting. I'm sure I will miss some of them. A lot of it's very automated too. So you have the ability to create tasks, reminders. You've got the payroll that can be built into it. There's so many parts and reports and pieces inside of QuickBooks that, because it's software for everybody. It's software for the landscaper. It's software for the doctor. You can use it on any kind of business. But I always say, if you're going to take LeanLaw and stick it on top of it, now you're putting the lawyer's business suit on it. So the pieces that may be missing that we don't, and you can do it in this, but the parts that you want specific to law, to tailor it to law, are in an outside program. So yeah, you can use QuickBooks just on its own, but there's so
Mhm.
much in here. I mean, this is the dashboard, but you can go into, there's the accounting, I'm trying to think of what else is like the workflow automation. You can go into some of those things.
Mhm.
Financial planning, you can actually plan and forecast the future. So there's a lot there. You can customize it. So you can file it. So most of the times, a lot of attorneys come to us and they're in the essentials product. They don't need to be in the essentials product. You want to go into why be stuck in this little box that you can't do certain things and you lose reports? If you just add a little bit on to get more of the product with more of the bells and whistles, you'll be very happy with it, because you're going to be able to maybe class track. And for mid-market, you just can't survive in the smallest or the lowest level. You need to be in the one with all the bells and whistles, where you're able to class track. I want to class track and track by attorney, so I can track the income coming in by attorney, and I want to be able to run reports on it. There's just so many pieces in this that you have multiple users. So if you're a mid-market firm, you can select the user and trim it down to exactly what you want that user to see. And that's a feature set that's not in a lot of products, that you just get a user and I can see everything. Well, I don't want that. I want to be able to, if I want someone only in AR, I don't want them to be able to view the payroll for a firm. So those are the kind of
Right.
things that you really want to have inside a
So,
platform. QuickBooks does that.
so the QuickBooks has something of a reputation as being a small business software.
Yeah.
A few years ago, they started a product called QuickBooks Online Advanced, which is expressly designed for mid-market law
Mhm.
firms and all firms.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit more about that product and what benefit it offers for mid-sized law firms.
Well, for us, advanced, we kind of pushed into it because they capped off the chart of accounts, and
Ah,
we
mhm,
like to show the sub-liability method of showing all the accounts, especially if it's mid-sized. You can tend to get, with some firms, you can get a very large amount of trust accounts. And I need to see the view in that register view, that I'm able to pull that open. If you ever have a bar audit, you're going to be very happy that you have the sub-liability view, where you're able to pull up and
right.
open up those accounts under the client trust account and be
So
able to
just,
see.
yeah. So
Mhm,
just to give an idea of what you're talking about, we have here an asset, the IOLTA bank account,
mhm,
which is something, this is something LeanLaw sets up automatically.
mhm.
And then we have down here, I just put in a couple of accounts here, but then you create a liability account. We call it funds held in trust. You can call it whatever you want. And then when you do a trust deposit or something else, it automatically sets up what you're talking about, a sub-liability
Mhm.
account where, we've made some trust deposits over here. Is that,
Exactly.
yeah, okay,
Exactly. Because if
right,
you're doing a three-way bank reconciliation, a proper one, your bank account and your funds held in trust, the amounts should be the same. And when you're
exactly,
looking at that accordion view of all the matters, you could have $100,000 in that account, but you could have it all broken out by the different clients. So you know
right,
exactly each piece that's owned by each person, which is what the bar wants you to show. So that's the beauty of having this kind of a setup. You're able to very easily see this. And we've done some bar audits for clients that have come to us. And I can tell you that they give you about 2 weeks to produce the records, and you have to make sure they're balanced, and they're going
right,
to tell you the snippet in time of what you give them the balances on the date that they're looking into. And it can be a random audit. It doesn't have to be an audit caused by something. And you have
hmm,
to show the ins and outs of the money for that entire time of being with the client. This setup works really well with LeanLaw because you're able to,
yeah,
this happens automatically, and I'm able to pull open that accordion view and then put it in their form to give it back to them. Like I said, you usually only have about 2 weeks to produce the records. So,
yeah. So here you can see the bank account balance at 8,000.
mhm.
And then when you go down here, you've got the total funds held in trust at 8,000, and then the sub
Mhm.
accounts adding up as well. So it's only two clients, but so far we're in good shape on the audit, I think.
Yes, you are. But that's the thing. What happens is I have a client with over 2,000 matters. Would you want to not show it in this way? Can you imagine what it would
Right,
be like if you didn't have this laid out and you get that message? They want to know every balance that's behind at a certain date, and you have to
exactly.
produce that. It would be very difficult if you don't have this type of
Right.
setup.
So you can't have a limitation on your chart of accounts. You need to have as many as it takes to
Yes,
show all
exactly.
of those trust amounts.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
with advanced, you get all the other pieces. You get that financial planner. You're going to get the budgets. You're going to get all those pieces and the reporting. There's a lot of reporting, and you can customize reports. So there's a lot of parts here that you're able to do that I think that a lot of times when you're looking at the cheaper software with QuickBooks, that you're going to lose out on because it's not going to be here. So at least you have all of those pieces here that allows you to build the custom report builder there.
See
And
if
you're
we
able
have
to
any.
just bring up different reports that I think sometimes some of the other software don't provide. And these are important. AR summary is a very good one to pull up because that's a pain point for most attorneys, their AR, and having this in place. And you can do automatic invoice reminders and set that up as a function of QuickBooks that is automated. So it can
Yeah.
be set up and trigger when you have open balances and you want to follow up on them.
Yeah. So QuickBooks, the way I look at it, it does a great job on sort of standard business reports.
Yes.
Your P&L, your AR, including aging, so it does all of that. Now there's a whole nother set of reports we'll talk about that are law specific that QuickBooks needs some help to work on.
Yeah, it's
So,
not designed for that. It was always
right.
built in mind that you can put that software on top. So if you're a contractor, you might want to put on top of it, a contractor specific software that'll make it have all the parts that they would need for a contractor. The same if
Mhm.
you're, e-commerce, there's other pieces you can add to it. It's not specifically designed for e-commerce, and the same goes for
Yeah. Yeah, so that's, I think as I would see kind of the takeaway for somebody here, if you've got a mid-sized law firm that's got some complexity in its financials, you ought to be looking at probably at QuickBooks Online Advanced.
Yeah. I mean, you've
Yeah,
got benchmarks that you can pull from here too. And there's, I mean, then I didn't even get into like in the financial section, you can set up cards and cash flow and things that you can track with QuickBooks that is not on the lesser product either. So yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's more like,
Okay, we could talk all day about
Mhm,
that, but let's try to cover some other things. One of the things QuickBooks has is an app store.
mhm.
So that's a place where you can find apps that integrate with QuickBooks. So which ones are your favorites for law firms?
Well, obviously we like LeanLaw and we like Cleo. That's our two that we just focus on because we really like to master and they work the best with QuickBooks. We like LiveFlow. LiveFlow, we've worked with them to design an automated three-way bank reconciliation. It's actually
Mm,
called the Proper Trust. So it's got the name on it, and you can connect LeanLaw and QuickBooks, and it will read both data fields and tell you if something's not, the three pieces don't align really quickly. Like if you have 2,000 matters, and it makes the whole line pink, so you can't miss it that it needs
wow.
attention for whatever reason. Yeah, it's been a time saver, like you can't even believe with some of the bigger files that we work in.
How
Uh,
would you describe that software? What does it do?
it's a software built on Google Sheets, but it also works with Excel.
Ah,
It's an
okay.
Excel type of program, but it's this specific one we created with them is for law firms, and it connects LeanLaw, it connects Clio, and I guess it would connect any external. I'm not really sure about that, but we designed it to have this all the back pieces, all the different tabs kind of show the inner workings of where the data is pulled from. And then
Hmm.
the front page will show, we had a page that shows the differences. And then once you've aligned the differences, you have to show the transactions in transit from the bank, because when you're reconciling the bank account, the bank statement balance, then you have to factor in anything that's in transit over, it happened on the last day of the month, but didn't clear the next month. And then it's a nice, easy, simple view for the client to see this is and all three balances have to match. Then you've got your
Nice,
bank reconciliation.
nice. So how about payroll? Do you use QuickBooks Payroll or?
Yep. We use
Okay.
QuickBooks Payroll and we use Gusto. So those are the two that we use. Although some clients have more complexities and have to go to like Paychecks or Sure Payroll, or there's a few
Oh,
clients that actually go into different ones. Some go into PEOs, they might go into JustWorks or one of those.
yeah.
But for the most part, most of our client base is in either QuickBooks or Gusto. And they're both great. I prefer QuickBooks because it's inside QuickBooks. So you can pull up
Hmm.
pay stubs and everything else like that. Sarah prefers Gusto. She's been on their council and she really loves that. And that product's great too. I mean, they're very similar. And I think that having it all together is really nice to have it all in one place, but either one works. They both work really
Yeah.
well for 'em.
Yeah. And for those of you who are still doing payroll separately somehow, either manually or with software, it it is a huge deal to bring that inside and integrate it with your accounting software. You
Yeah,
know,
you gotta know what you're doing.
yeah, Yeah, exactly. Because it is, that's just going to save you a ton of work to have that kind of integration. And that's not the kind of, you can't get that if you've got an older software that's, desktop or separated, something like
Yeah.
SharePoint. You can't do an integrated payroll in the same
No,
way.
and I don't
Um,
even, you can't. And this way, if you're in, like, if you have QuickBooks Payroll, it's right there on the left-hand side. You can see it on the nav bar, the payroll tab. But it just makes it easier. If you're in a product like a Gusto or Paychex or ADP or one of the big ones, you have to code it, but you should connect it. So it pushes
right.
the journal entry so that you have all that back history of what's coming across and they're in the right categories with any of them, even the ones that, even QuickBooks that's sitting in here, you got to reconcile it for your client. Every quarter we reconcile to the tax return so that if there's something not coded right, because you have to code QuickBooks too. You have to go into the settings and make sure that it's set up. There's quite a few places that can go wrong too. So you really need to know what you're doing when it comes to payroll. I always say payroll is kind of a loss leader for us. It's always seems to be things that break happen in payroll, and then you're on the phone trying to get something
Uh,
not
yeah,
fun. You're on the, you're having to call the local Department of Revenue if there's a problem, or it's just not a
yeah. I
fun
mean,
part.
LeanLaw has employees in 8 states.
Do you?
So you have, yeah, and that was such a nightmare before we had Gusto and
Yeah.
had some help to get all those things set up. So I
Yeah,
don't see how you operate a sophisticated business
we
without
have a
some
lot
help.
of states. It's so difficult because every
Yeah.
state, we have Washington, which is the state of Washington is like the hardest one. And because they still have some kind of antique system that we have to go in and pay things
Uh,
manually because even QuickBooks won't connect to it. Maybe Gusto does. Gusto's a little further ahead with some of those connections when it comes to those oddball states. But yeah, it's hard when you have all these different employees all over the country, but that's what we do too. It's definitely a
yeah,
challenge. Um,
yeah, exactly. Well, and
we
there's some,
also
sorry.
I was gonna say, we also use Dext and HubDoc. So for
Mm-hmm.
vendor bill receipts, client receipts management, I have a method that I call Look Ma, No Hands with LeanLaw because I can have the bill be brought up into Dext or HubDoc, and all I have to do is go into there. It'll automatically recognize, oh, it's, court reporting. It's going to go into advanced client costs, and it just waits for me to tag it for the matter. Once I hit go and it goes into QuickBooks, it's then read by LeanLaw and it's ready to be billed to the client. So you're not missing any expenses, client expenses. You don't want to miss them because you
Right.
paid back for them. But what I love about it is it just kind of flows in. You're not really, you do have to little detail in the description line because that will port over back onto the invoice, but it's so easy compared to the old days. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's what there's a bunch of functions like that having the kind of industry standard with the many integrations makes a huge difference. I mean, think about benefits. We
mhm.
use a tool called Ease to run our benefit program, and that just takes so much manual work away, and then connects it in with QuickBooks, and puts the information where it needs to go. Um, we use a tool called Ramp for
Yeah, yeah.
expense management, which is basically ex, uh, employee, uh, not credit cards, but
Thanks.
expense cards
Mhm.
that you can put time limits on, and put easily create virtual cards, and
Mhm.
put limits on the amount that can be spent. Is just 1,000 times easier than doing any of that um, manually or with
Mhm.
actual physical cards. So if your back office is not connected and have that level of automation, you really should look at things like this, because that's a
Yeah.
game changer. I
It
mean,
is.
I ran LeanLaw's operations for several years by myself, and I would not have survived without apps like that.
I know. You think of them anyway. It's funny though, when you like if we take a client off of some old system and they're ready to move into QuickBooks, even if it's just coming off a desktop, we found over the years of doing this that you don't want to change and reinvent the wheel. So as you bring them over, you might let them stay in their payroll program if it's available to do for a bit until they get used to the new QuickBooks and LeanLaw scenario where you're moving them off of something really separate and siloed and putting them into something that works, that's sleek like this. And you let the time go, the year ends, a nice time to open up the conversation, maybe add the payroll, add the Dext or HubDoc or the Ramp to add pieces in for bringing the receipt management in. And there's receipt management inside of QuickBooks as well, which has gotten a lot better, and it has AI that helps with that. But there's a lot of different software we've added, and I've known with working with clients that sometimes you don't want to change so many things, but sometimes if they're open to it, you can. We had a client not that long ago that their bookkeeper they had for 30 years retired, and they were literally on desktop mailing an envelope with all their bills in the envelope to her. She would put the bills in to desktop, print the checks, mail it back. I mean, this is I couldn't believe the process. They didn't have any bank feeds hooked up. And when we started to show them what was out there, they wanted to change everything and ended up having to go onto a Lucid chart and put all the pieces so they knew what piece did what, because it can get really confusing if you're adding all that software, like which one does what thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and it helped them to visually see how the pieces interconnected. But yes, so it's funny how you don't realize how many times, especially if you're a bookkeeper working in this field, there's still a lot of law firms that work in a pace from maybe like 1990 still. And, it's
Yeah,
ripe for change.
many of them have pieces from 1990, if not the whole system. It's
Yeah.
been a real challenge to get, firms to really go all in on automation. So, all right, just to kind of finish that conversation, how does LeanLaw fit in to those integrations in your world?
Well, LeanLaw is the legal tool. So LeanLaw is where the legal billing is going to happen. Also, there's a lot of reports in there. We can really connect and really be able to take the custom fields and connect them. So you connect it here in the settings and it will push into QuickBooks. So you're getting the result because QuickBooks holds the whole, we call it the whole enchilada. It's got the expenses, the income, it's your GL, your general ledger program, where LeanLaw would be more of your AR side. So it's handling those important pieces. And sometimes some of the reports we get out of LeanLaw are very specific to the AR side. So it works well too, especially with mid-market firms where the client doesn't want every attorney seeing every case or matter. You can filter that down to the client, the attorney level. So they're able to only see on their view what they're supposed to see for their screen timekeepers as well. I just think I've never had a client that has come to me to be inside a LeanLaw, moving from some other product. They don't come back to me like saying, I'm lost. This is so confusing. I never have that. They come in, they get their lessons with LeanLaw staff, and then they come back and they just adapt to it because it's very easy to understand. And I think that's been the biggest takeaway. Like we might work with the bookkeeper a little bit on it for different things that come up. And really it's setting up the settings is crucial to get the most benefit out of the product, but it's got so much in there. And truly having the setup with billing where, we always ask the client, when do you do your billing? Is it once a month, twice a month? Do you bill as you go? What style of billing? You have opportunity with LeanLaw to do the fixed fee billing. You've got the ability to adapt to those different things. Evergreen billing, I mean, that's something that I think we're starting to see a little bit more of. We're starting to see that shift, which happened with accountants, happen with lawyers now a little bit more, where they're looking even into subscription billing, which I don't think I would have been able to have a conversation back in 2016 about that. But now it's, yeah,
Right.
it can be
Right.
done for some firms. And some firms are doing kind of how we all did it with accounting. We did a mix. So you start to think outside the box of where in my firm, and these are conversations we have with our clients when we start to do some of that advisory, like first analyze what you're doing, what is your practice area, which ones are the beneficial, what services are you doing that are beneficial. Then you can start to look at maybe a different style of billing where you can adapt to those other methods. It can be more profitable and you're not so tied to the billable hour, which I think is something we'll start to see more of as we step into.
Yeah, certainly seeing it in some practice areas in a big way.
Yeah, it's great
And
though. It's good to see.
yeah, and more sophisticated fixed fee billing like like we've worked with a lot of IP firms,
Mm-hmm.
intellectual property firms
Yep.
who, want milestones and, bill on the completion of the milestone and, sort of different triggers as to how much the bill is in different segments there. I think basic almost made Fred's head explode. He's our CTO. But that's the kind of thing you need to do. And just one quick anecdote, which is when we started building LeanLaw, we kind of thought we would build a better Cleo, because my frustration was with bad practice management software that I'd used for many years in my firm. And when we got into it, it's like there's plenty to do just on the financial side. And so we need to be able to rely on these industry standard tools and just take advantage of what they do well and build the legal specialty stuff on top of that. We're still not done with what we need on the finance side. We'll probably always be building new features and refining things. But the all the stuff that QuickBooks doesn't really do well that law firms need, like professional timekeeping, fixed fees, trust accounting, professional invoicing, and payments, all of that stuff, and the specialized reporting. That's all we do, and that's what's in here. That it, kind of gives us a reason for being. You can explain to everybody how to do each one of these things in QuickBooks. It'll be miserable. But we came in and filled in that gap. So
Yeah, I mean, I had a client that he 100% said, what do I need a software for? And that happens a lot in conversations that we have with them. And I take a look at it. And first of all, if you have trust accounting, that's an easy sell because you really want to ensure that the trust accounting is correct to the penny. And that 3 ways, you lose the third way if you don't have the software. And if you've got a lot of trust to track, this is the way to do it because it's got some bumpers installed that I can't send back more money than the client had in their account. So if your
right,
account balance is wrong, I have to fix the problem before I can send it back. Where if you've got it in QuickBooks only, you can write a check for as much as you want. There's no bumpers there. So regardless of the fact that you also have a lot of steps. So just getting a client put into QuickBooks, and I do have a free little how to use QuickBooks with lawyers. And I made that video with the intention to let people know how many steps, how manual the process is to know that you really need the software because the small price of the software is
right,
going to save you from having to do all the steps. And if you miss one step, your accounting goes off and it's no longer balanced. And you don't want to have unbalanced software. And
right.
here it's so
So
easy.
if you want to create a client, this is all it takes in LeanLaw. So
Yeah.
just fill in the company and some contact information, and boom, you're done. Uh, Take it that's a little more complicated in QuickBooks.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you want to create the client, then you want to create the liability account. So you
Yes,
have to do the two pieces. And then
those
if
are
you're receiving,
separate.
right, and if
Yeah,
you're receiving a retainer here, I can click plus trust retainer and send out a request.
what
There I
that
have
looks
to
like.
do a whole scenario with a sales receipt and try to create this transaction, actually invoice, to create this transaction that I have to send out. It's just a ton of steps to be able to do that because you have to have
Right,
products, services, and all that set up and
right.
ready to do
Yeah,
that.
I love the trust deposit, especially when we've
Yes.
got electronic payments set up, because it will also send the trust request with the payment button to the client, allow them to go through that transaction, and then will send everybody a receipt, both the client and the company, a receipt when you're done, deposit the money into the correct bank account, so it's fully
Yes,
automated.
that's the other key. Now we had this happen. This is what I like about like another part of LeanLaw, I like is you guys have partnered with Confido, which is Gravity Legal.
Hmm.
Um, that alone, they have the best dashboard. They are by far, and we're actually meeting with them Friday because they're doing more things to their product. They're like you all, you keep building on it. So the product doesn't stay stagnant. You're always improving on it. And the things that you can do in here, we have a lot of immigration attorneys that we work with, and they have payment plans that they create with their immigrants that are trying to become citizens. And there's different scenarios where they have to do this different way of billing and tracking, and Confido does a really good job with setting that up. The contract's this, and we can set all the pieces up in the reminders, and it might be monthly billing. They send it to as a text, and the availability to be able to click and pay is right there. And if you're doing your billing and you don't have that ability, you're mailing something out with the post office, you are missing out on being paid quicker, better, faster. I mean, in today's world,
Or at all. Yeah.
or at all,
Sometimes.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Legal bills don't age well. That's for sure.
No, no. It's one of the first places I go to see how much outstanding AR do they have? We partner with Cobox, and they're a professional collection company. They work with lawyers. That's their thing, and they do a great job. They professionally call, so you don't have to worry about like you're hiring a company that's going to be like, Uncle Knuckles. You got a guy you're calling that to be very professional, and and reach out to your clients, and it takes you out of it. And that's the biggest thing. Like, we do help with that service, but if we see you've got a lot of AR open and it's an ongoing issue, we have that available so that you can work with that firm, and they help set it up, and they've got a beautiful process. It works into QuickBooks. It reads the QuickBooks data. So yeah, there's a lot of software in today's world. And I think you really want to have a bookkeeper that
Yeah.
has that knowledge of all the different pieces, because there's a lot out there that you can automate.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up Evergreen retainers because I'm really proud of the work that we've done on that. So basically, that is a fully automated system where each client has a retainer, and as they are billed, that retainer is drawn down and a request to refill it goes out to them, all with electronic payments. So they're really, it's like no paper in this whole process.
Or
And
calculating, because you're doing it.
right,
Which
right,
is, if you don't have LeanLaw and you're doing it in QuickBooks, now you've got to run a list after you do the billing, look at the balances, figure out what each person's retainer was supposed to be, do the math, I can't even imagine how many steps that would take to have that process.
right.
This is just
And
handled.
and it, I will say that it's not easy to set up an Evergreen retainer process.
Mm-mm.
We have our kind of prize student here is a family law firm, a high-end divorce firm in Texas, and they saved themselves $1 million a year by doing this because they were having a lot of collection problems. And that if there's enough at stake for you, and it doesn't cost $1 million to set this up, but there is some work involved. Um, it can really be game changing for the finances of your firm.
And for us, it's less work. So
Yeah,
I get
exactly.
it. For us, it's a lot less to handle it this way. And I can see really easily. And the fact that it just sends it out and keeps track of it and keeps the level there, because that's the beauty of an evergreen retainer, really, is to have that money there and constantly being refilled. It's a good way of billing.
Yeah, I think the the more certain your payments are, the happier you're going to be as a
Yeah.
law firm.
And even
It's just
even as a consumer of the law firm, it's
right,
what you know. That's why I think sometimes the hourly billing can be scary, because you don't know what your bill is going to be. But if you have a situation where you start to do that, divorce course costs X, but maybe they might be more added on for a specific, like a divorce that
right.
goes on a little longer, but you can figure out what that's going to be and then have that set up, because those are
You can manage it, and you can put those Confido payment terms
yep,
on it, and just it makes it a whole lot easier for everybody.
it does.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to spend a little time talking about invoicing. I assume you help your clients with lots of that.
Yes.
So I'm on the trust account here, but we have this is basically what we call our billing page. So you really got both of these relate to time entries. We didn't talk about we talked about expenses a little bit, but this is where you bill expenses in LeanLaw.
Mhm.
And, very easy to create an expense, just like we did with the other things. You can attach the receipt and all that. Um, so let me
And
just,
truly, you should only
yeah,
really be doing that for soft costs. The hard costs should be brought in as bills, booked to advanced client costs. That all will happen with the attachment there. But what I like about LeanLaw is I'm able to click on, if it came through QuickBooks, you'll be able to click the QB logo and it brings you into QuickBooks to the exact
right,
transaction, which is a time saver for us when we're trying to look
right,
something up. And then the attached receipt being there, which is why you want the Dexter Hub Doc, is perfect. Some firms want to know what each receipt is, make sure that they actually go to that client and when they're doing their billing, and it's nice to have that right attached to the transactions.
exactly. And you brought up one thing there I wanted to point out here, which is, we always wanted QuickBooks to be the source of truth.
Mhm.
That is, it's the industry standard software. It'll be here no matter what. And, you don't want to be keeping your information in a bunch of different tools. Now we sync so that you can see a lot of your QuickBooks information in LeanLaw. And, there, LeanLaw is probably where you're going to spend a lot of your time if you're using the tool. But, you don't have to worry like, oh, something's going to get out of whack between the two. So I think that was a real key decision we made to go in that direction. So talk a little bit about invoicing with LeanLaw and how that works.
It's very versatile because I'm able to, obviously the attorneys are tracking their time. And like we mentioned about the different styles of
Yep.
billing. But if it's an hourly billing, we're pushing the expenses in. Once the month closes, most people bill in the very beginning of the month. At least most of the firms we work with will do that. They'll bill once a month. Sometimes cash flow will convince them to do it twice a month. And then I'll prepare the drafts for them. Depends on the firm. Different firms have different rules or instructions, but we'll prepare the drafts. We'll say the drafts are ready. They'll go in and look at the bills, maybe tweak them. Fixing a draft is very simple. If there's something on there that you need to tweak the time, you can write it down. It's got a lot of different ways to track where you don't really want to write stuff down, but if you are, it's tracks the entire time and then it will track the written off part. If you put an expense on and you realize, oh, maybe the insurance company you're billing isn't going to be able to prove that right now, it'll have to be wait to the next month. You can take it off and save it for next month. So you have the ability to do that. Once we send the drafts off, the attorneys approve them, and then we basically push them through. They go into QuickBooks, and we're able to either send them out as an email. We can do PDFs. And the other piece that's really important, if you do leads billing, because leads billing is a pain in the neck, but not so much with LeanLaw because you're able to push that right out very simply and print to leads, and then obviously upload it to your legal tracker or whatever system that you
Right,
pull them into. That's another beauty of this. You're able to turn on the codes to track for leads billing, and then make sure all the codes are there because that will spit the bill back if you don't have the codes on, and you can set it up
right.
in law that if the code's not there, it won't finish the transaction until somebody puts the code in. So it's important.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a question here that is LeanLaw like Cleo and Leap?
Yeah,
Um,
different. They're all different.
Yeah. So Cleo, I mean, the biggest difference is that Cleo is a practice management tool. So it basically includes a lot of things that aren't finance related, document management, docketing, CRM, if you add that
Yeah, it
module,
is a
a,
CRM.
a
Yeah.
bunch of other things. Um, and LeanLaw is totally focused on finance. We'll talk about this in a second, but our philosophy is that M365 can be configured to do a lot of practice management things as well or better than a Cleo or other, legal specific tools. You need some expert help to get there. But, we think that's a better value and you're going to have better results if you go through that process, in our opinion.
I think
Uh,
another important distinction too, Gary, is lien law has a two-way sync. Cleo
yes,
has a one-way sync. So when you make a change in Cleo and it's only reads one way. So sometimes the attorney will make a change in Cleo. It'll actually shoot a duplicate transaction over that one may sit in your undeposited fund for a while until you discover it and remove the duplicate. We don't
Yeah.
have those problems with LeanLaw because it does have the two-way sync, which is really a beautiful thing. Also, because it pushes into the subledger, it saves us a ton of time because it is set up the way we want to see it on the books. That's another an important distinction between LeanLaw and Cleo. And Cleo is great for if you want that all-encompassing product for, we have a lot of clients on it and it works really well. I mean, it's great if you want all that docketing and you want to keep all the files there and you want to communicate with your client internally through the platform, it's there. We do get our own user for free with LeanLaw too, which is also a nice feature that, and I get to have all my clients on one page where I don't have that with any other software. You always have to get like, I have to make an alias
Interesting.
email and I have to make the alias email be the person that logs in. I don't have that view. The
Hmm.
view is very much like QuickBooks where I can see every client that I have on the side. So I just can toggle between the clients where I have to go find the login and the email name that I used for the client to log in. So it's
Right.
definitely a cool feature that you have.
So one of the things so because we were finance focused pretty early on in our development, we found that, we're kind of digging deeper
Mhm.
than a lot of these softwares were. And as a result, attracting more firms that are bigger and who frankly run more money through their systems. So, we've built in a lot of features here that if you have 100 invoices or 500 invoices, you've got to say you can automate a lot of that by with bulk editing and bulk features. You can have more sophisticated invoicing processes where multiple people are involved, and just trying to get a lot of money over getting more invoices out and more money in the door efficiently is something that we work really hard at. And we were pretty excited recently. We crossed over the $1 billion mark for the
Oh,
amount of money that our clients are running through the system. And when I think we've got some pretty successful law firms using the process and who rely on us to help get their bills out, which is gives me a lot of pride that we're working with some really good clients. Um, let's see, we have just a few more minutes left. We talked about billing a bit and about expense tracking. Um, let's talk about reporting and compensation tracking for the next thing. So, we have the reports that we talked about, the basic financial reports, the P&L, the accounts receivable, aging, that sort of thing. Now, what other kinds of things do law firms need that they might not find, off the shelf in QuickBooks?
well, I think if you do our tracking by practice area, you're able to filter it down to tracking it by practice area. Also,
Mhm.
the WIP report, a lot of them want to know how much do I have out in WIP? What do I have that's not been billed, that's in holding to be able to bill to a client? People want to know how much money they've spent on client expenses that needs to be billed.
Right, right.
Uh,
Because, yeah, I mean, typically, unless you're inputting time in QuickBooks, which is something
oh,
is a
not fun.
painful, very painful.
Very
Um,
painful.
QuickBooks doesn't see that time until you actually have an invoice.
Right.
So, so that's important. If you want to track that WIP, you've got to have some way to do that. That's separate. And LeanLaw has reports like that. I don't know how much data will be in this one. Let me X me out and get everybody in. But you can produce a report that shows your WIP, your draft, what's billed, what's been collected. Um, so you have those sort of key data that you need
Yeah, for the whole firm here. So if you're the
for the
manager,
whole firm. Yeah.
yeah, you might want to look at that. And you also have ways to track originating and responsible attorneys and percentages there, which is also a nice feature that LeanLaw has.
Yeah, so that's the, what we call compensation reporting. And, we're sort of big advocates of objective compensation systems, what I call the finder, minder, grinder system, which is what I grew up with as a lawyer. Um, and we want to help automate that process. In my firm, that's like a monstrous spreadsheet.
Yeah,
uh,
a lot. Oh, see that? Look at that.
some
Yes, compensation is another question we ask the attorneys. If it's a bigger firm, how do you do the compensation? And you get all sorts of answers. Usually there's a spreadsheet involved. And usually when we get our hands on the spreadsheet, we find out that this isn't even coded right. You missed a whole row or whatever when we look at it. And it's so funny that Sarah, I think we were saying we were kind of messing around with saying we might want to stop the spreadsheet on a t-shirt someday with proper trust, because it's something that there's always a hidden spreadsheet when you talk to an attorney. They've got a side spreadsheet somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see.
You might not have to.
I don't have any collected data here. So let me
But you
just
can track. Mhm.
show you what our those compensation tracking does. So basically, you can set an originating attorney share, responsible attorney share, firm share, by default a working attorney share with a bunch of different ways of looking at all of that. So if you have that type of compensation system, we have a number of pretty good sized clients who use this out of the box.
Mhm.
And even if it doesn't, law firms, for 10 law firms, there are 15 ways they want to calculate compensation. So even if you can't do everything with this, you can still get good basic data and feed it into a spreadsheet and do whatever your particularized calculation is. So do you have a lot of clients using this,
Uh,
Lynda?
we have some
Mm-hmm.
that very much use this. And they set it up perfectly with the originating and the responsible. And it
Mm-hmm.
works. We pull the reports down out of this sometimes and put it in the financial packet. And it's a good report to have because that's really the attorneys live inside of the LeanLaw product. They're not really in QuickBooks. If we have the perfect scenario, we like to keep them kind of out of it, and we work,
Right.
they
Yeah,
work
exactly.
here, we work there. But Rachel has a question too. It says, if you currently use Cleo and sync to Cleo, what's the benefit of LeanLaw? You wouldn't have Cleo and LeanLaw. You would have one or the other. So you would never have both. They would overlap on those two software.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess what I want to say about that is, um, are you really, why do you have a full practice management suite? And,
Yeah.
if you like, if LeanLaw offers things like a two-way sync and a better automation on the finance side, and you're hanging on to Clio because it does your document management, um, I'd take a look at pretty hard at, okay, is what the doing your document management in Clio really the best way to do it? And that's where this M365 conversation comes up. I mean, we work with a consultant named Misty Murray with Arrow Consulting out of Oklahoma, who is a real guru with M365. And, I have yet to find a practice management function that she does uh, that I yet to see a practice management function that uh, that M365 can't do as well or better than than an all-in-one software. I mean, Microsoft is this big,
Mhm.
Clio is this big, and Microsoft is in some of the largest companies in the world. So you've got that option. We also have a net documents integration that that we're going to build. So that's a document management system that's pretty sophisticated. So, think about what we call a best in class approach, which is find use those core things like QuickBooks and M365 as much as you can, and then find niche applications that are very focused to do the rest.
Yeah, and really, when a client comes to us, we ask the questions of what scenario they need, because sometimes a client would be a good fit for Cleo, and sometimes they're a better fit for
Right.
LeanLaw. Is client specific and what their needs are. Family law does really well with Cleo because of all the everything in one. If that's what the attorney wants, the smaller firms tend to really want that. Cleo has a lot of small
Yeah.
firms. Mid-sized firms tend to kind of work better with LeanLaw because of the advanced reporting. You don't get a lot of reports with Cleo, so you have to go to another company to get those. They do have them, you just have to pay another firm for it. And with LeanLaw, they're baked in, and you get that customization of this, which was critical. With the compensation tracking, it's really critical.
Right. Right. Well, I feel like there are 1,000 more things we could talk about, Linda, but
I know.
unfortunately, we are out of time. Um, if there are more questions, please feel free to email me or Linda, and we'll be sure to answer those. I don't see any more in the chat or in the Q&A, but it's been a pleasure talking
Yeah.
with you, Linda, and uh, love to connect and
Thank you for
talk
having
about yeah. So thank you everybody for coming to the webinar today. You'll be let me just really quickly I'm going to just say a couple of things in closing here. So we have more of these webinars. We typically have 2 a month on these Thursdays, so keep your eyes and ears peeled for these. And you're going to get an email from Amy Eller, who is our product specialist, who's going to give you some more information today, the slides, a law firm financial report card to sort of see where you are, law firm compensation calculator, and details on how LeanLaw can help you, along with some information about the things that Linda does. So thanks everybody for coming, and we are adjourned.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Linda. Bye
Thanks.
now.
Bye-bye.